Welcome to the Power of Integrity podcast. I'm Ralph Adamo, your host. This is where leadership aligns with principles. And today we have one of those individuals driven by strong principles. Scharrell Jackson, global keynote speaker and executive coach. Welcome.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm glad to be here.
We are glad to have you, and I know it's going to be a fun and lively conversation. One of the things I always like for our audience to know is who is the guest and something about them. Would you tell us a little about your professional and personal journey and where you are today and what you're doing so folks know a little bit about you and how you got to where you are?
Yeah, sure. I started my career as an accountant and operations leader and navigated up to becoming a corporate COO, CFO, and partner of a top tier CPA firm, one of the top 100 firms in the nation, and have worked in a myriad of industries from fintech and professional services to manufacturing, distribution, and a host of others. But most importantly, I had the opportunity to not only lead organizations, but play a role in developing major players and leaders and changing the lives of others. And through that journey, I also started speaking about 20 years ago, primarily to elevate others, to shift them from confusion to clarity and fear to courage, regardless of the seat that they sat and the money that they made. And 3 years ago, I transitioned my career into becoming a global keynote speaker and international executive coach. And it's been nothing but a blessing to lead in purpose and to watch individuals shift to a space where they lead their lives in alignment with the story that they want others to tell, which I call in game excellence, and move and make decisions in alignment with the life that they want to live, and ultimately live their life with decisive excellence. Most importantly, I'm a lover of Jesus Christ. I'm a mother of three kings and a queen and two beautiful granddaughters and princesses. And I'm living a life of impact. And I have a personal life cadence of abundance and impact, joy, peace, low stress, and great health. And I make every decision in alignment. So it's been a privilege and a pleasure to be able to join organizations like yours, to share my story, and hopefully just move one life. So I'm looking forward to this interview.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I knew we were up for a delight today. Tell me something, Terrell. Faith plays a strong a place and role in your life for sure. And when you think about it, what does the word integrity mean to you when you look through those lenses?
I guess for me, when I think about integrity, is living my life in alignment with what God has called for me to do and be. It really is about making all of my decisions tied to honesty, truth, tied to an example of not just who say I am, but what others would say. And leading my life with integrity means that I'm operating where I know that the things that I do, God will be pleased with. And it's not about perfection, but it really is about doing the right thing for the right motivation to, at the end of the day, support others, because ultimately it's just not about us. So that's what I think about when I think about integrity.
Yes. Can you give our audience an example of when the principle of integrity was applied for you making a key decision in life?
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of those. There's a myriad of opportunities, personally and professionally, where we could take shortcuts, right? I mean, there are things that we could do to get the quick win. There are decisions that we could make that ultimately might make us look good, but it's disaligned in who we really are when we're operating in the imposter syndrome, or we're code switching, or we're becoming pleasers and we want to meet the needs of others. But I can think about a specific decision where someone wanted me to get something done very quickly, meant that I need to succumb maybe to temptation of doing things quickly and compromise that truth, that road to uncompromising truth. And as I thought about it, what I had to deal with is perhaps somebody being mad at me not really moving in alignment with what that person wanted me to do the way they wanted me to do it. And I'm not necessarily telling you the specifics because it was a business matter. But the bottom line is that I had to make a very tough call to take a little bit longer than what they wanted, to dig deep into the information and to make sure that the data had the integrity and that it just wasn't the outcome that somebody wanted, but I would be able to stand firm on exactly what it was that they wanted me to do. And for me, being a person who was a pleaser, that was very difficult because I was not going to give somebody what they wanted the way they wanted. Now, at the end of the day, whenever you operate in integrity, the outcome always wins, but the process sometimes is hard. And I had to go through that, but it really proved to be and create the start of a legacy for me, which is tied to what I really live for. And so it was worth it.
Yes, you have hit on a pretty good lesson there. Sometimes the process is hard, even though we know the outcome is going to be correct and straight and right. Yes. Tell me
Yeah.
something about transparency in your leadership style. How does that play a role when you have to lead others?
Well, transparency plays a role because I believe that being your authentic self before there were words like the imposter syndrome and code switching has been a mantra by which I live. And that means that it's not just about what it looks like, because we all know that everything that glitters is not gold, but it's ultimately about who you are. And what I found with transparency is by sharing my truths, the good, the bad, and the indifferent or ugly, has allowed me to build trust with the individuals who choose to allow me to walk alongside them. By sharing some of my stories around where I have had some failures that have catapulted me into elevation, where I have had some missteps and I've been brokenhearted, or I've hurt other people, where I haven't made decisions that people wanted me to make, or perhaps I didn't choose somebody who wanted to be chosen. And so being transparent about these difficulties in my journey allows other people to feel comfortable, to recognize that it's not about perfection, to build trust. Because I think that when we're vulnerable and we're transparent, it creates an integration and relationship where we feel safe. And when people feel safe with you, there's no limit to how far they'll go because they trust you. And they may not always like how you do it or what you do. But I found when I have shared consistently and transparently about the highs and lows of my life, and yet people look at an outcome that they admire, it catapults others into being able to be vulnerable, or at least to consider to just let the fear have a voice, but don't let it have a vote in how you operate. Be who you really are, operate with authenticity, and watch it help you soar personally and professionally with my kids, team, communities. It's been a game changer for me, to be honest with you.
Yes. Well, I love that you brought authenticity into the narrative as well as consistency because people can't trust something that's inconsistent when they're not able to predict it, is my sense of things.
Hmm. They
Yeah.
really can't. You find, I always say to people that you got to meet people where they are and recognize that people can only show up based on the capacity in which they have to give. And if you're operating in a point of integrity and you recognize that the relationship is built on the mutual contributions of one another, but it's not tied to your expectations of someone showing up the way that you want them to, but people just being who they are, that you watch how people show up, you see the consistency, you shift your expectations, and it doesn't necessarily disrupt how you move once you're able to see how people are and allow them to just be the best version of themselves, whatever that looks like. It really does reduce your stress too.
That's for sure. When you think about productivity and integrity as a leader in an organization, how does the integrity element help propel productivity from those that work for and with you?
I think that it helps propel those who work for and with you when you are honest about what the expectation is and the why. So often, especially being at the top, we can push down expectations without the clarity of the why. And it causes individuals to not really feel like they're a part of, but they're the sum of. And people don't want to operate in that capacity. People want to feel like their contributions matter. So when I go to a team member and I say, look, I know this is going to cause you to burn the candles at both ends. And I appreciate the compromise and the sacrifices that you're making with your family, with your husband or your wife, with your children, with your time, which is the most valuable asset. But quite frankly, I need you to show up for me. And then I'm willing to do the same for my people. It really does allow people to make significant sacrifices for you because they know that it's a mutual contribution to the relationship. And what I do know is that when individuals recognize that you appreciate, own, and understand that we truly are better together, regardless of who we are, what we look like, or where we come from, then there is a value proposition to that. And when you make an investment, it's like the stock market. It may have its highs and lows, but at the end of the day, you win. And so I think it plays a major role in the productivity when you're working with your team members, your friends, or just your general community. People appreciate it.
Yes. Yeah, that word appreciated and appreciating one another. It's not often enough applied, is it, as in the workplace? And it ought to be a lot more of that.
It really isn't. And I think the world, especially today, regardless of what side of the table you're sitting on, there's so much negativity out there and there's an oversaturation with the internet and the news and individuals focusing on things that ultimately don't matter. But there's an infiltration into our mind that will shift the way that we think if we're not careful. But if we ultimately start to recognize that we are better together, regardless of your background or where your fears are, that our level of elevation and penetrating the marketplace and having better families, creating more relationships, because what you could do, I can't do. What I could do, you can't do. But collectively, we're better together. Man, it'll change the game of business, families, relationships. It'll shift this world.
Absolutely. What when it comes to the consumer, the client, the customers of the firm or firms you have worked with, how do you feel about integrity playing a role in client loyalty?
I think it plays a role in client loyalty, or I would say, at least in my experience, it does. Because when times get hard, I've been through three economic downturns. I mean, the next one's on its way, right? You just keep living. And when you have clients who know and trust that you hashtag got them, that you've made sacrifices for them, they make them for you. They will speak your name to others and they will open doors that you cannot open. I entreed into entrepreneurship after leaving corporate career after 35 years and don't market because there's client loyalty. Because when you shift one life and people know that you care about them, they will go and tell a friend who will tell a friend who will tell a friend. Client loyalty will be honest with you when they're having highs and lows because they want to stay with you and they will continue to maintain a relationship with you. And when they grow, you'll benefit. Client loyalty will bring you new clients. It'll bring you referral partners. It'll really help catapult you. And I think that we need to do more investing in building relationships with our clients as opposed to just closing transactions. And you'll see the impact of client loyalty when you have a relationship with the individuals that we serve.
Yes, another pearl of wisdom, having a relationship with our clients. We like to think of that in our world. We speak about being on a shared journey with our clients so that we know that if they don't arrive safe, we don't arrive safe. We're in this together and failure's not an option, right? Success is the only outcome, regardless of how much effort it's going to take us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, tell us, there has to be a situation in time, hopefully not many of them, where you were engaged in a situation, a transaction, a relationship, and the counterparty didn't bring the level of integrity or lacked integrity and how that turned out without breaching any confidence. Could you tell us a little bit about an event like that that might have happened in your professional life?
Oh yeah, there's plenty, right? There's plenty when you work and you refine to get better and better. And gosh, if I could tell the younger version of myself, but I know now things wouldn't have been so rocky, right? But I had a client that had asked me to come and support her journey as a CEO, where the organization was struggling economically, needed to gain more market share, and there were some cultural shifts that weren't aligned with success. And so it was an overarching problem within the organization. And while I'm a coach and a speaker, a lot of the work that I do with my clients expand into business consulting because my background is finance and operations, and I've been leading in organizations and creating some significant success for 30 plus years. So in this engagement, this particular client wanted me to shortcut some of the shifts that needed to happen in the organization and really not focus on her journey of elevation, but more around her team. And I think oftentimes when we have clients and we're so focused on the money, we will compromise um, doing whatever the client wants to some extent, as long as it's not illegal, right, in order to maintain the revenue stream. And in this particular situation, I needed to have a major issue with a major conversation with this client about the issue because what she was asking of me truly lacked integrity. She wasn't willing to take responsibility for her own leadership flaws. She wanted to point the finger at her team versus recognize that her leadership is what was driving them to whatever finish line they were getting to. And most of the individuals in her environment were intimidated by her because she held the keys and she was the leader. And I think we find ourselves in those situations more often than not. I know I did early in my career and was easily intimidated by the fear of loss. And therefore, I might have made some sacrifices or moved in disalignment with ultimately the legacy leadership that I wanted to create. And so I had to have a very tough conversation with her and make it clear to her that while I understood what her goals and objectives were, and that the outcome she wanted, we were in alignment, the process that she wanted me to go through was in complete disalignment with my leadership style. And in that moment, and I was early in the entrepreneurial journey, I was scared. I was scared of losing the revenue. I was scared of the impact it might have on my reputation based on how she wanted to frame it. I was scared of whether or not I'd be able to garner even another engagement because I was early in the entrepreneurial journey. But I would tell you through that conversation, while I did make a decision, and I made the decision, she was very grateful that I was honest with her. It came to a point where she recognized she didn't know herself, and not only that, but many high performing leaders at the top, nobody cares enough about them to tell them the truth. And ultimately, through that conversation, I think there was growth on her part and on mine. But I also made a decision to disengage with her and take the financial hit. And it was a big decision for me to make, one that I couldn't afford at the time, but probably one of the greatest leadership lessons that I've learned. And it catapulted my entrepreneurial journey to a whole nother level. So yeah, it was pretty interesting because she wanted me to do some things that I was just not going to do.
Yes, you used that word interesting. I'm sure it was pretty tough.
I was petrified. You know, there's an underbelly around our ability to succeed, regardless of how it looks to the external world. We're all afraid of something at some point in time in our life. And there's a fear of failure the higher you get. And I was brand new into entrepreneurship. And so it was definitely scary, but the best move, one of the best moves I've ever made.
Yeah, good for you for making that tough decision. You know, you have many lessons that our audience can learn, but I'm curious for those that are the younger audience, because more and more are tuning in about some of the insights and the tips and the hints, the things that helped you course correct. What would be some of the things you would tell our younger audience to do when they're starting out, either in their own startups, their career? What are some of those thoughts you have for them, Cheryl?
I guess the first thing that I would say is that we've got to shift the way that we speak to ourselves and what guides our expectation of success. And I would encourage each and every person out there, young or old, to remember that you are enough and that we need to speak positively to ourselves. And we got to set the stage for our day before it even starts by our own positive self-talk. Many of us appear to be confident, but there's a lot of fear that sets and guides how we move or how we show up. The other thing I would say is that really get to know who you are and operate in your authentic self. It's easy to show up based on how you think other people want you to show up, but it's not sustainable. So work to really operate in your own authenticity, because the world needs you. They don't need an imposter or another version of somebody else. The other thing that I would say is, in spite of your fear, just allow it to sit here and have a voice, but not a vote in what you do. Even though some people look like they're not afraid, that's a lie. They are. I'm sitting on this podcast. I don't know if anybody's going to watch it. I'm not sure if the host is going to enjoy the things that I'm saying. And so there's a level of fear that we all have, but move anyway. Don't let the fear stop you from moving in the direction that you want. And then I would say, be sure to ask for help. It's not about, doing things alone and thinking that you have to be some hero. You can be a hero on a journey with others, because ultimately we're better together. So whether you can afford a coach, whether you have a mentor or a sponsor, somebody that you give permission to tell you the truth about yourself, and they're courageous enough to do it at the risk of the relationship, because they want to see you elevate. And then the last thing I would say is just keep learning, because it's not going to stop. But your motto is not social media, it's not the internet, and it's not what other people say. It's about who you are and refining your skills, identifying what you're great at or you want to do, and living it in purpose. There's no greater impact you can make when you are yourself and you're operating in purpose. There is no limit to how high you can go. So if I was talking to the younger version of myself, I would ultimately just say, "You're enough. Now go get it." You know?
Great advice. Yes. A- Applauding those folks and encouraging those young folks to be who they are. I said it before. Walt Whitman said, "Come as you are, that is enough."
Exactly.
For sure. For sure. Absolutely. One of the things I've been kind of encouraging our community of integrity and integrity wealth management, the company itself, is for folks to share a little bit about their bucket list. Sometimes it's revealing and it's helpful and inspiring to others. I'm wondering if you have one. If not, if you were to formulate one or two of those top things you want to accomplish in life, what would hit the top of those lists?
I guess if I were to look at my bucket list, everything is not something tangible, but I definitely have one. One is that at the end of my story, that is pleasing to God, and that the impact that I can make would be worldwide. The other one is that when, somebody says, "Who's a woman in your life that's been of the greatest influence?" that my name would be among those individuals to choose. The other one would be that I'm able to travel and visit all of the places that I want to go, and I'm able to go to as many concerts as possible, because I love to travel and I love music. And I guess the last one would be that my children and my grandchildren, my parents and my siblings, my family members and my friends always feel loved through their interaction with me. And if I can accomplish all of those things before I get to the kingdom of heaven, then it's all good.
Well, you have been an inspiration of faith, hope, and love. And I'm sure your creator has honored every step that you're taking these days. Absolutely. It's been a delight. I'm here with Scharrell Jackson. And Scharrell, as we're turning the corner here and coming close to the end of the show, how do folks get in touch with you if they would like to get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Sure. Obviously, I'm a consultant and speaker, but I also own a speaker series called Leadership in Heels. And so, if you're an Instagram person or you like Facebook, follow me on Leadership in Heels. That's leadership.in.heels. And or you can connect with me on my website. It's my name, Scharrell Jackson. And or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, which is my name, Scharrell Jackson. And last but not least, YouTube. So there's a myriad of ways, but if you want to have a one-on-one consultation, if there's a way that I can motivate and inspire you, if there's a way I can support your team by standing on a stage or coach you to the next level of elevation, feel free to go onto my website and schedule a consultation. I look forward to journeying with you. And thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, it's wonderful. Scharrell Jackson, you have been a wonderful guest. It was a real delight having this opportunity to speak with you and have this conversation. It was lighthearted and it was uplifting and it was completely enjoyable. I can't believe how quickly the time has gone by. Scharrell Jackson, you are an example for the rest of us. Thank you so much for being on the Power of Integrity podcast.
Thank you also.
The information presented in this program is provided for informational purposes only. The information is believed to be reliable, but no guarantee of accuracy is made or implied. Expressions of opinions are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult a legal or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. This information does not constitute a solicitation or an offer to buy or sell any security. Investing involves risks, including possible loss of capital. Ralph Adamo is registered with the securities and are offered through Kovac Securities Inc., member FINRA, SIPC, 6451 North Federal Highway, Suite 1201, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33308. Telephone number 954-782-4771. Investment advisory services are offered through Kovac Advisors Inc. Integrity Wealth Management is not affiliated with Kovac Securities Inc. or Kovac Advisors Inc.